How is everyone doing? Strength Chat episode 71, and today I have got a very special guest for you. Today I am joined by an athlete nutrition coach working with Hull KR and Wasps Academy. He's also delivering numerous nutrition workshops around the country. And he's also, I'm going to dub him, I think I've said this before, the in-house Strength Chat nutritionist, because he's a record-breaking fifth episode guest appearance. Today, I'm joined by the man, the myth, the legend, Chris Lowe. How are you doing?
Wow, what an intro. Thank you. Yeah. No, great. Thanks, Steve.
We've got to make this episode really, really good now. I've built it up now.
It's going downhill from here. It's very cool.
So obviously, being on obviously fifth episode. Obviously, the last time was the 50th episode, where obviously there was myself, you, Chris Kershaw, Ross McKenley, and Matt Cook. What have you been up to since we last spoke? What have you been working on? What's been happening?
Yeah, the big thing I guess has changed since last time is I'm starting my strength and conditioning and personal trainer nutrition education program called the Intelligent Coach. So I always have like a lot of coaches come up to me like quite unsure what they need to be doing from a nutrition perspective, how to help their clients. They read stuff online and not necessarily sure if it's right or wrong, and then how to implement it. So I got a 6 month sort of cohort launching the start of July, which is going to take you through every sort of area of performance nutrition, in terms of the theory and the application side of it.
Oh, nice.
So really looking forward to launching that. That'd be very, very cool.
Nice.
And then after that sort of initial 6 month, then we're going to go into full 12 month start from January.
Yeah.
So
nice.
Cool.
So what's been going on behind the scenes? Like, how long has that been in the pipeline? Then the work putting in for that.
Yeah, it's kind of like just a natural like evolution, I think.
Yeah.
Like, so obviously I got my athlete nutrition coaching program, but a lot of coaches have been on that as well, like who actually compete in sports.
Yeah.
And they go in there mainly to like try and learn as well.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like I want to know what I'm doing, why I'm doing it, so I can help my own athletes.
Yeah.
Like, okay, well, there's something here to it. So yeah, go and do more specific based stuff for them in terms of that sort of route.
Oh, good. Sounds promising, quite exciting. And I think last time we spoke, you were obviously delivering. I think it was when you were in the gym last time. Actually, you're delivering a couple of workshops. I know you had one down in London. How have they been going? Have you got any more lined up?
Yeah, it's been awesome. Yeah. So my next one is in Leeds, actually, hometown. So June the 8th, it's going to be a half-day workshop where we're going to cover 3 main areas that are sort of most occurring with athletes. So muscle gain, fat loss, fueling, and recovery and adaptation. So we're going to do like a deep dive into every single area, to spend a whole morning going through it all, and then going to have like their own sort of plan of action going forward then, in terms of not only knowing the theory, but actually know what to do with the theory. So they can go in like have their own sort of plans built there and then. So I'm looking forward to that. So that's in just under a month. So it'll be cool.
Oh, nice, good. So obviously, I mentioned I had a couple of appearances on the chat before, and the work that you're doing with athletes. So you've obviously working with Hull KR and working with the Wasps Academy. For obviously the update is that Strength Chat is on iTunes now, so a whole new audience. So for everyone who might not have listened to the previous episodes that you've been on, or know your background, do you just want to give a little bit of a background to yourself?
Yeah, to be fair, you've done such a good intro. I think you covered most of it. But yeah, like you're saying, so nutritionist at Hull KR, been there for 4 years now, going to 5th next season. Currently with Wasps Academy, but going to be doing the first team for next season as well. So we're going from first 15 all down to under 15s. So it'll be cool being head of nutrition there. And then all my own stuff, in terms of my athlete nutrition coaching program, my intelligent coach program, like I mentioned before. And sort of various workshops I'm starting to deliver now. And I'm trying to get them done ideally every month, but we'll see. Yeah. Always got ambitious sort of goals out there, but we'll see what happens.
Oh, well, I think what's that saying? Shoot for the stars and land on the moon, you know. It's it's not always that bad having lofty expectations, because it gives you a good mindset to try and work towards those, which will be good. So we've covered a wide range of topics every time we've spoke, and it was touched on briefly. I think one of the questions was asked in the 50th episode about counting calories. So when it comes to, it doesn't really matter whether you're a bodybuilder, a powerlifter, competing in CrossFit, or just performing for general health. The whole thing is calorie counting. So I thought it'd be quite good to pick your brains on this topic. And what the first opening question that I want to sort of dive into is, what actually is a calorie? And when it comes to calories, because I've had this question before, are there difference in calories, if that makes sense?
Yeah, for sure. Like, as you know, sort of calories get thrown around quite a lot. So in terms of what a calorie is basically a unit of measurement. So each food will contain energy, which is expressed in calories then. So if you say, for example, you have a food, you break it down, the byproduct of that is heat. Now, 1 calorie, so if you look at the old school textbooks, a calorie is defined as 1 calorie is needed to increase the temperature of 1 kilo of fluid or 1 kilo of water by 1 degree Celsius. So that's what the kind of old school definition is.
Yeah.
That's measured like a bomb calorimeter, and you're not going to have that on the side of you, put your meal in it to find out the exact calorie value of it. Not really sort of realistic or practical. Yeah. But that's essentially what 1 calorie is. It's just a form of it's just for measurement, really. Unit measurement. And so we get calories from different foods. So in terms of our macronutrients, so protein, fats, carbohydrates, and say alcohol, give us different amounts of calories per gram. So for example, protein and carbs will yield 4 calories per gram, fat 9 calories per gram, and then fat about alcohol 7. And so based on the composition of the meal and the amount you consume, that's going to depend on the amount of calories you actually ingest.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah. So when an example of that is, I was literally having this conversation this week, when if you have to hit a certain amount of calories, if there is, as long as you hit those calories, is there a difference between having it of like wholesome, good quality food compared to just being able to hit those calories, if that makes sense?
It depends what the outcome is.
Okay.
So say, for example, if you are in a calorie deficit to lose body fat, therefore you're consuming fewer calories than you expend. Yes, theoretically, you can eat pretty poor quality foods. Say, for example, I have 2 diets, 2,000 calories, 2,000 calories, and then one diet is high quality food, should we say, high in fiber, everything like that. The other ones like McDonald's, stuff like that. The results for fat loss purposes only will be very, very similar.
Yeah.
On the other hand, energy, stuff like that will be different as well though. There's some evidence to suggest that you can expend a little bit more energy with more sort of high quality based foods, because it's going to be less refined, less processed, just a little bit harder to break down. So you might have a small advantage there, but for fat loss purposes only, calorie restriction is the most important thing, really. But then if you have one diet full of highly processed foods, you're going to have nutrient deficiencies, poor energy, everything like that. Yeah. So yes, you need to be in a calorie restricted diet, but you can't take the piss with it, really. As well, what's going to fill you up most as well. So I always look out when I build a meal, how much food can I get on my plate for the smallest amount of calories in return. So if I'm having highly processed foods, think of say a large Domino's pizza is 2,800 calories. Put that, so that's one sort of meal. Where if you spread that into a meal of sweet potato, lean meats, lean fish, vegetables, that's going to spread so much further. Yeah. So yes, obviously you're going to have more nutrient quality in that. It's going to be more satiating, be able to fuel performance better, manage hunger, craving stuff better. but then you got the pizza on the other side. Yes, it will be perhaps the same amount of calories, but it's not going to be able to satiate as well, and so on. And you're going to be pretty deficient in a lot of things. You just have one Domino's pizza a day.
Yeah, I think when you're putting it like that, it is a question of, oh well, if it fits my calories, I can have it on there. But it's a good point when you're chatting about nutrient deficiency and whether it's going to fill you up, because you find that some people will have, oh well, I'm going to have a McDonald's or something like that because it fits within my calories. But when you look at what the foundation of your food should be, proteins, fats, carbs, good vegetables and that sort of stuff, quality food, I think sometimes that can get overlooked. So what when people are counting calories, obviously you gave some of the values of the calories there. How accurate is it when it comes to counting calories? Because there is some research out there that says it can fluctuate. Some people say that you shouldn't be counting calories. What are your thoughts on that? And what does the research and science say really?
Yeah. So I can't remember where I stole this quote from, but a really good quote. So you don't have to count calories, but calories do count.
Yeah.
It's just a really nice one. So there's different ways of measuring, sort of tracking calories. Before we get into that, I think it's important just to cover like the whole accuracy side of things. So the FDA is allowed food labels to be up to 20% out.
Okay.
So that's quite a big thing. So if you're tracking 200 calories, that could be as low as 160 or as high as 240. So if you're like, I have to hit 200, no more, no less, and then the food label's out by 20%, it's like, oh, okay then. So when I say like tell clients, always looking at ballpark figures, like don't stress about the minutiae or details, the exact numbers, look at ballpark figures.
Yeah.
And then likewise, things with like activity watches, like they could be up to about sort of 10% out as well in terms of calorie expenditure.
Okay.
So I'm just reading a study earlier now and looking at the difference between like a Fitbit, iWatch, I can't remember what the other one was, there's a few different ones, the Samsung one as well. And the average was about 140 to 180 calories out. And then one of them were about 280 out, one participant. So, if they're like, I have to hit my exact calorie intake measured by my watch.
Yeah.
Hit my exact calorie expenditure measured by my watch versus my intake. I know that could be 20% out. That could be 20% out. It's like, there's no point.
Yeah.
So always looking at ballpark figures. That is the most important thing.
Yeah. I think when you mention it like that, I think everyone thinks that calorie counting is a precise science, and if this is the amount of calories that you're having, so that's what it must be. That's what it must be like. But as long as you're tracking it, I suppose it's a little bit like having a food diary. It gives you an idea, gives you, like you say, a ballpark of where you're at. When you mentioned about on the food labels when it can be 20% out, is that mainly with obviously when we just chatted about processed versus unprocessed foods? Is that 20% out on the majority of pre-packaged sort of processed foods, if you like, or is that for sort of the vegetables and that sort of stuff as well?
Yeah, for sure. Like multi-ingredient based foods. Yeah.
Right. Okay.
So, like a chicken breast is pretty much a chicken breast.
Yeah.
Unless they pump it full of water. So that's probably not the best example. A broccoli is a broccoli type thing, that type of stuff.
Yeah.
So again, if there's like multi-ingredient based stuff in it, so whether it's like a ready meal, a chocolate bar, something like that, it could be up to 20% out. Yeah. Okay. Either way, plus or minus.
So to sort of make that prediction of calories and make that ballpark a little bit more accurate, is that then sort of the argument of trying to go down the wholesome food route as opposed to the pre-packaged multi-ingredient?
Yeah, so I always like sort of balance with any sort of approach, like the whole like 80-20 rule. As long as you eat 80% of food is like naturally occurring and minimally processed, then 20% can come from whatever it wants. Yeah. So like if you are tracking that 80%, which is like wholesome food,
Yeah.
Yes, maybe out a little bit, but probably won't be up to like 20% out.
Yeah. Okay.
So
Yeah.
you just like got to watch like the variances in the food labels within the 20% that if you do wish to deviate.
Yeah.
Like restaurants, a prime example.
Yeah.
Or if you go put Domino's out there again, if you get a pizza, like the guy making it could be putting like more cheese on one day, less another day, and so on.
Yeah. I suppose that
So
comes down to, what obviously you can't control. Like you say there, if someone's putting a little bit more cheese on the pizza, that's something that's a little bit out of your control. And then that way, you are going to be a little bit unsure. It's not going to be as accurate or as precise to know what calories you're actually hitting. Just on that note, and you touched on it a little bit when you mentioned about, if a chicken breast is full of water, a lot of people will chat about, or they'll use MyFitnessPal and everything. And it'll say, boiled potatoes or raw potatoes or anything like that. Is there any change in value and it decreases in accuracy when it comes to, cooking food and the different ways of cooking food?
a little bit, yeah.
Okay.
For example, say that chicken breast, if it's pumped full of water, it may start off like 200 grams, may end up like 130.
Yeah.
So again, it's just just be mindful of it. Like I don't want people to get too caught up in it.
Yeah.
Like, I'm cooking it in the oven versus cooking in the pan, therefore I have to change X, Y, Z. It's like, it's more important things I don't have to worry about. If I'm honest with you.
Yeah.
I never bother going into it that much because I don't think it's necessarily that important.
Yeah.
Yes, there is changes there, but as long as it's consistent, then it's always going to be consistently out, should we say?
Yeah. Okay. So obviously you mentioned that people can get too caught up with the different the different types of cooking with different ingredients. What have you found with the clients and athletes that you've worked with are the main sort of pitfalls where people go wrong with actually counting calories and using that as tracking their food?
Yeah, so if we say, looking at the research first, people are very, very good at underreporting what they eat. So it's a case of, I'm eating 1,200 calories a day and I'm not losing weight. It's like, well, yes, you can have slight differences, like this slight range in terms of your metabolic rate based on like predicted formulas, but it's not going to be out that much.
Yeah.
Might be like 5% out or something like that. So, you're most likely in 2,500 calories, but forgetting about all these little things. The best one is like the whole latte thing. They just see a latte as like a coffee, a drink.
Yeah.
It's like, it's 250 calories in it. You're having 3 of them a day. It's like, okay, then.
Yeah, I think that is because obviously the clients that I'll work with, we'll use we'll get them to record their food, whatever's going to be the best way that they. Whether it be on MyFitnessPal, whether it be a food diary, whether it be taking photographs or whatever it may be, and I think that is a big what I found to be the biggest factor, that when you start digging a little bit deeper and asking, okay, so I went out for a meal, all right, okay, and it says I had steak and chips. Okay, did you have any sauce with the steak? Did you have a beer while you were sat there? Oh yeah, I did have a couple of beers. Everyone wants to write down the main part of it, but I suppose when it comes to, especially if you are using calories as your tracker, all those things do add up, and like you say, they can fluctuate and vary.
Yeah, absolutely. Whether people just sort of just kind of forget and it's like an instant like, okay, sorry, I forgot, or people are just flat out lying.
Yeah.
It's like, I'm not gonna tell you. So you got two sort of side of things.
Yeah.
Like working with like some rugby players as well, like bigger lads, 100, 110 kilo, doing like 3 to 4 sessions a day in like pre-season, not dropping weight. It's like you're expending about 6,000 calories a day. It's like you're telling me you're eating 2,000. There's something not quite right here.
Yeah.
And again, like, is it because they just don't know, or is it because they lie?
Yeah.
So you kind of got to approach that one a little bit softly, should we say, not just accuse them straight away.
It's
so
not,
it's like
not,
so
not
many
a
things
witch
go
hunt.
into like,
Don't track them down straight away and be like, you liar.
yeah. And the thing is, like, there's so many other things that kind of go into it as well. It's like I think we'll touch on later as well, but like the calorie expenditure outside of training as well. So for these sort of rugby players have very high training demands. You think, oh yes, they are burning a lot of energy, so they're very physically active, but when they get home, they're just playing on Fortnite, they're knackered, they're just like sat in their ass all day for the rest of the day, let's say. So they're very sedentary, not really burning much. So in some cases, if you've got like single day sessions, like that is enough to sort of compensate for the energy expenditure outside the gym.
Yeah.
So for example, for myself, like if say I train once a day, say it's a really hard session and I'm very fatigued for the rest of the day, I'm going to be less active. So my fidgeting, my NEAT, my non-exercise activity thermogenesis goes down. Yeah. And it probably sort of compensate versus against like a rest day where I don't train and I'm not as fatigued. Therefore, my NEAT would be higher.
Yeah.
So it's almost a case of like actually in most people who aren't sort of for like multiple training sessions a day, sometimes your calorie expenditure could be very similar every day. Yeah. Where if you've got huge training demands, it can be peaks and troughs type thing.
Yeah, I think that's where sort of, everyone thinks that I think people either go one way or the other. They'll either dive straight into a training plan, and that saying of you can't outrun a bad diet, and they'll train as much as they can, but then obviously the nutrition doesn't line up, or like what you're saying, they might not train as much, but they'll be good with their nutrition. Both sort of go hand in hand, and yeah, if you are training too much, you've got to fuel your body for those workouts. When it comes to obviously we mentioned a couple of other pitfalls there of if they're not recording everything they eat. What about the other end of the spectrum? Obviously, you've spoken about that the multi-ingredient processed foods can be up to 20% out. Where can people go wrong, or how can it go wrong if people are 100% on it and they need to record everything? Is that at the other end of the spectrum a negative calorie count?
The other side is like almost like the over like obsessiveness about it, would just cause a lot of burnout. And they sort of like track, everything's perfect, on point, not deviating. Then all of a sudden it's like, fuck, like I can't do this anymore. And then they just have like unplanned eating episodes and binge, feel bad about themselves, guilt, and then start again. So I remember working with like a female weightlifter before. She's like tracking everything, like her vegetable intake. Like I have no time for someone to weigh out a tomato, a piece of broccoli, some spinach. Like, no, please don't do that. Yeah. Like public service announcement: do not track your veg. Just don't. But yeah, so you can get really caught up with stuff, and completely miss like the elephant in the room, stuff like that. So that side of things can be pretty detrimental. So like say for example on my sort of coaching programs, we will start quite intensive in terms of the tracking stuff, but then sort of wean off it and you do more like intuitive based eating then. So I'll start them with like meal planning, so they know exactly what a good day of eating looks like based on their training demands, the schedule, foods likes, dislikes, how to make a good meal, how to put it together so it tastes nice, everything like that. Then it transitions into they take ownership of it. So they do my fitness pal, they track stuff, I review their intake, and then it goes into intuitive eating. It's like, okay, you know what your hunger cues are like now, how you should feel, what your portion size are just by eyeballing stuff up. Go in, do it. Just track your body weight over time. Is it increasing, maintaining, decreasing? And I would suggest whether you're in a calorie deficit, surplus, or maintenance. I just tend to do it that way. So it's almost just like, I'd see it as like a skill. You have like a skillful sort of part, and then you sort of wean off. It's like progressions, just like with a squat, body weight squat, goblet squat, back to whatever sort you want to do. So I look at it that way.
Yeah, I think, when you're looking as a coach, whether it be, a nutrition coach or whether it's a coach for an actual training program, I like to think of it as, graduating from school or college or anything. You learn the skills, you learn how to do it, and then, you want to get to an end point where your client, your athlete, yes, still needs check-ins and, nudge in the right direction. but it's a, for me, especially from a nutrition point of view, it is a life skill to be able to know how to cook and how to eat properly. And from a coach's point of view, ideally you want them to actually learn something, and a little bit like what you said about tracking everything. There is sometimes more to life than, oh no, I've completely gone wrong with I'm 20 calories out. It's the end of the world. There is a little bit more. There is a little bit more to that when it comes to achieving your goals and that sort of stuff.
Like saying, like when they're sort of measuring stuff that's like the minutest sort of detail, knowing that the inaccuracies out there in terms of food labels or like activity trackers is like, it's going to cause so much sort of burnout, so much like distress and stuff. There's just no point. Ballpark figures is everything we need to look at. And again, like, what's your daily activity level like? Are you getting the lift one day to work? Are you then walking up the stairs and work the next day? Like, you tracking that? Like, where does it stop?
Yeah, it's I think talking about calories is one of those. As soon as you start talking about it, is one of those rabbit holes that when people say, "Yeah, I'm going to start counting calories," there is a little bit more to it than just putting it into my fitness pal. And obviously, you mentioned about the process that you use with their clients and athletes that you work with. Is that the best practice that you found that has worked, or does the template that you use or the process that you use change depending on the goal and the client or the athlete that you're working with?
Yeah, I think that's the general sort of progression. Like, a lot of them just come to me like they kind of understand the theory, but they don't know how to apply it. So they just need to know what it looks like in front of them. It's like you giving them some like a training program. It's like, right, here's like your reps, your sets, your rest, everything like that. It's like, for me, it's like, okay, here's your protein, here's your carbs, here's your fats, here's the timings, everything like that. So it just gives them a good idea. And then, you just sort of like kind of wean off it type thing once they know. So that's something I sort of just come about sort of looking at doing, and seems to work quite well. Everyone's enjoying it. So, initially they like all the structured side of it, and by the end of it, they don't want the structure. So it works just as natural sort of progression anyway, based on like their motivation and stuff like that.
How did you finally get to using that as the template or the process that you use? Was it, did you trial and error a few more processes before that to sort of get it ironed out? How did you get to sort of and find that to be the best practice that you've used?
Yeah, so it isn't like a strict sort of guideline, like in terms of 3 month program. It's like month 1, your meal plans, month 2, MyFitnessPal, month 3. It's kind of like, well, if you're ready to progress to the next stage, then just do that. It kind of just, I guess, just happened by accident. I guess like some people follow meal plans, then the next day like, oh, it's okay. I'm just going to do MyFitnessPal now. Kind of got enough from there. Like, okay, yeah, sweet. We'll just progress that now then. And then it's like, oh, MyFitnessPal missed a few days of like day entry and stuff because I was busy. It's like, okay, we still mindfully eating. It's like, yeah, I still kind of followed what we're doing, but I just didn't write anything down. It's like, okay, then. Well, you're still tracking in your head. You're just not writing anything down. So then it kind of just progressed that way. So I've said, like, if I took away meal plans to MyFitnessPal away from you, would you completely freak out? I'm like, no, I'm okay. It's like, okay, that's the way we're going to go.
Yeah, I think that's a like you say, it's a natural progression, but I think you still have to have that. It's like when you start doing any program, if people are coming in and, for example, doing a powerlifting program, right, the first month, this is what I want you to get. These are your 4 sessions or 3 sessions, whatever. This is what I want you to stick to. And then, as your technique improves, as you get a little bit stronger, then it's like, right, okay, let's start talking about, we'll communicate a little bit more of, right, what do you think's working for you? How's that feeling a little bit more? But I think you need to lay that foundation, if you like, of, like you mentioned, tracking everything and writing everything down. Too often people will be like, oh, I'm not writing anything down, I'm not tracking anything. Right, are you losing fat, you're gaining muscle? No, right, let's start with this process, and then once you're doing everything that is asked of you, then, like you say, a nice natural progression to okay, well, actually food's been pretty ugly, tell me what you've ate. Well, X, Y, and Z. Right, that's not too bad, and you don't have to rely on tracking it as much, But I think the dictator of that is if everything is still heading in the right direction.
For sure. Just like people just to write stuff down, just makes them far more mindful of what they're doing again. Because I think they're just so automatic in their routine. And they're like, oh shit, I'm actually having that. Oh, I'm having that. It's like I'm having that meal deal with that as well. It's like, oh, okay. It just stops that like impulsiveness, I guess. Yeah. And that sort of subconscious sort of activity that's going on. Yeah. So getting them to write down is actually just quite a nice sort of tool.
Yeah.
As a starting point. Yeah. Like whenever I get before I get like an athlete into my program, I get them to do a food diary for me like for 3 days. Yeah. Just so I can see their normal eating habits and their structure, everything like that. But more so they're mindful of what they're doing, of what they're actually doing. Yeah. And it also tells me again, go back to that under-reporting side of things. Mm-hmm. It's like, are they lying? Are they like, how are they going to be going forward? Yeah. So if you've got like say a 100-kilo guy eating 1,800 calories, you just come to me, can't drop body fat. It's like, you're not eating 1,800 calories. So I'm going into it, like how to structure that then and how to sort of get on his side to get buy-in that way.
Yeah. Yeah. It's, there is
it's quite a nice tool.
Yeah. I think a lot of people think that, if they don't write anything down, but as coaches, you will be able to, for all my clients listening, the coaches always find out. We always get to the bottom of it. So you touched on it a little bit there about your NEAT. So obviously the exercise that you do outside of the gym, like walking and whatever else you might do outside of the gym. One thing that when it comes to calorie counting and eating enough and tracking food is I train quite a lot of guys that come into the gym and they're wanting to put size on, they're wanting to put muscle on. Okay, and you read quite a lot of it, and there's some information to say that some people are a little bit more fidgety than others, and that'll have a detrimental effect. What are the physiological factors that may hinder the skinnier guys or the smaller people, trying to put muscle on? Because sometimes they'll just say, I can't do it. I'm just not made to put muscle on. So what are your thoughts, and what does the research or the science say about that?
Yeah, no, that's class. That's a very good question. If you break down muscle building into 3 sort of areas, it's basically your weight training is the most important thing to create that stimulus. Yeah. Followed by, this could be argued whether it's going to be your protein intake or your calorie intake, so energy availability. If one of those 3 things aren't on point, that's going to be really limiting for progress. Yeah. So not to sort of bash CrossFitters too much at the moment, but I had quite a few of them come to me and saying like, right, I'm going to build muscle. Okay, it's like, right, I can give you the optimal, quote unquote, optimal plan that has adequate calories and protein, but you're not going to build muscle by doing kipping pull-ups and snatches and stuff. It is not going to happen. Your training stimulus isn't there. And trying to sort of get them to rethink about that is very, very difficult. Mm-hmm. Likewise, same for rugby as well. During the season, are they going to build muscle? One day is going to be rehab, prehab. The next day they can have a fairly decent session. Next day maybe a fairly decent session. Then into game prep. So they've got 2 sessions a week, 2 opportunities to build muscle. It's like it's probably not going to happen. Yeah. At a significant rate anyway. Yeah. So the only time we can really do it for them is kind of like off-season, pre-season, where off-season they often Lanzarote and like Magaluf and the pace and stuff, like, so they can't do anything there. And then they've got like maybe 8-week pre-season where they can actually get something decent in. Yeah. But for them, they're doing their conditioning, the rugby on top of that, and they're burning so much energy that makes the whole energy availability sort of part of the equation very difficult to achieve. Yeah. So, and it does come down to their food intake then, very much so, the amount of calories, because that's going to be really limiting. Okay. So what you touched on there as well is the NEAT side of it, so the activity levels outside the gym. And I guess these hard gainers are very good at activating NEAT. So this is one study where they overfed participants by 1,000 calories every day for 8 weeks. So they overfed them by 56,000 calories in 8 weeks. but they only stored about a third of those calories as fat. So it's like, okay, where did that 66% of those calories go?
Yeah.
It was attributed to just subconscious movement, just like fidgeting, moving around, burning stuff off. So when people say like, oh, Chris, how much of a surplus shall I be in to gain weight? It's like, I don't really know. It's like, that's your predictive equation, which is going to be like your base metabolic rate times your physical activity level plus exercise. And if I say like, right, 200 calories over, 100 calories over, but knowing that when they put 1,000 calories extra into these guys, they've burnt off the first 600 or so. It's like, okay, where do you actually go type thing? So you start with like a ballpark figure, taper calories up, define where you kind of look, and see where body weight is increasing by perhaps 0.5 to 1% per month, depending on like training experience. And then again, it comes down to the argument: do you actually need to be in a surplus to build muscle?
Okay.
My recommendations and my thoughts are probably a little contradicting, but I don't like, generally speaking, anything a surplus is an excess of calories, and an excess of calories gets stored as body fat. So you're satisfied daily movements, your base metabolic rate, and your calorie demand to build muscle.
Yeah.
So that is your maintenance calories. Then anything additional is stored as body fat.
Okay.
So it's a surplus. So theoretically, you do not need to.
Yeah.
But knowing that, so my actual recommendations again is going to contradict it, because we know that calorie intake is really linked into muscle growth. So it makes sense to be a little bit over, just to make sure that you're not in a calorie deficit. So physiologically, I don't think you need to be in a surplus. Maintenance will be fine, because maintenance is meeting the body's demands. So the energy burnt or used to build muscle is accounted for. And then anything in excess is a surplus stored as body fat.
Okay. So is that where the whole argument of, if you are looking to put on size, if you are looking to put on muscle, the whole argument of if you're going to put muscle on, your fat is going to increase as well? Is that sort of where that comes from?
Yeah, for sure. Like, I'd always make sure that you put, again, a little bit of a surplus, just to make sure you're eating enough. Even though theoretically you probably don't, I just make sure you do, just to make sure.
Yeah.
Like, again, it's one study on athletes when they had sort of two groups of, I think it is Norwegian Olympic athletes who were, and alongside like 17 hours of sport specific work they did, like hypertrophy work, 4 sessions a week. And they put in two groups. One had like a maintenance diet, and the other one had like a maintenance plus 500 calorie surplus.
Yeah.
And the muscle mass gain at the end of like 8 to 12 weeks was quite similar. It's like 1.2 versus 1.7 kilos. So the guys in the more of a surplus had a bit more muscle growth, like 5 grams or so. But the maintenance guys, they didn't put any body fat on at all. It's like it's like 200 grams is nothing. Where I think it was it's like over a kilo. It's like 1.7 kilos of fat or something like that was for the 500 calorie surplus.
Yeah.
So knowing that is like, yes, they built muscle quite similar rates. Maybe the surplus is a little bit better, but they actually gained a lot of body fat on, which actually then when they tested their 400-meter sprint and they can't move and jump, is a lot worse, because their power to weight ratio is a lot worse.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like, okay, if you want to have like a 6-month gaining phase, do you need to in a 500 calorie surplus, because you're going to have to spend a few months getting that back down, and in that process of getting there, you're going to be slower, less explosive, and then in that process as well, also at the end of that process, when you have to be in a calorie deficit, you're going to have compromise in your performance, fueling, recovery, adaptation, hunger, cravings, all that stuff.
Yeah.
So for athletes, it's like slow and steady. Where if you're in like a powerlifter, weightlifter, and if you're in like higher weight categories, and you can afford to put a little bit of body fat on, then okay, maybe that extra 500 grams every sort of 3 months would be quite beneficial for you.
Okay.
That's what I say.
As you know, a lot of topics that we're as coaches to chat about. Really, it depends on what you want as your goal. If it's a case of yes, you can get bigger, you can put muscle on, but you are gonna put fat on. If you are wanting to be, like you say, a little bit more explosive, run a little bit faster, that's going to be a little bit of a hindrance, because obviously the lighter you are, it'll be of better when it comes to sprinting. On the flip side, from a powerlifter's point of view, I think that's where people get in their head that's the route that they need to go down. I compete in powerlifting because I like powerlifting, and I want to be able to lift the heaviest that I can. But that isn't everyone's goal. I think on one of the previous chats we were on about actually cutting weight for a powerlifting competition. Unless you are in a weight category sport and need to focus on that. If you are just a smaller guy wanting to put a little bit of size on, it doesn't. If it's not for a performance goal, then you don't have to think too much about that. But that's when you start. I think that's when you start delving into sort of the whole bulking and cutting and going up and down and fluctuating all the time. Just on that note of when you mentioned about if you are in a surplus and fat is going up, when the skinnier guys, if you like, come into the gym, you want to get them eating. You want to get increase their food, because we touched on it a little bit before that people either be recording less food, or I think sometimes a lot of people can undereat. Is it a myth that sort of the skinnier guys can get away with a few more cheat meals and be like, right, okay, go and get yourself a mighty bucket from KFC and get all that protein in? What are sort of the thoughts behind that? Is it a myth?
No, there's definitely some truth to it, I guess. So first of all, again, like muscle growth is a very long process, so we need the sustainability into it. So if they want to have that 80-20 type rule implemented in their plan, then 20% is great to be used for that bucket of chicken or whatever. So that side of things, cool. Generally speaking, again, skinny guys are very good at activating meat, these hard gainers. So it's a case of, from that one study, when they put 1,000 calories in, they've burnt off the first 2/3 of it. So, okay, they could probably afford to have a little bit more in it as well. So that's something to consider. And then, especially if they're really struggling to hit a higher calorie intake, then that could help. Because usually, they just don't have much of an appetite as well. So something like that could help, just high calorie, energy dense foods. And then if they are super skinny, they're probably very new to the gym, so newbie. Yeah. So we know that they do have accelerated rates of muscle growth, and they can handle higher calorie intakes, because muscle turnover is almost like just flying around like a spinning wheel very, very quickly. Yeah. Therefore, they use a lot of energy. Where in terms of elite athletes or very well-trained people, muscle turnover is very, very slow, or much slower. Therefore, they don't need as much energy into it. Yeah. So hard gainers, yes, they can go out and have ice cream, pizza, stuff like that. But I wouldn't have it all as the diet. Food quality is still a very important thing there.
I'm glad you said that, because, like I said at the start, I train quite a lot of guys that are looking to put muscle on. So for all of my clients that are wanting to put muscle on, that are wanting to gain a little bit of size, no, you can't have pizza every single day.
To touch on that, what I tend to do, especially my rugby lads, if they got really high energy intakes and they need to be in that ever so small of a surplus, get them to drink the calories if they're struggling. Yeah. So it doesn't satiate you, it doesn't fill you up quite as much, and you can put 1,000 calories into a smoothie quite easy. Yeah. It's quite easily done, and that then still complies with quote unquote healthy eating as well. Yeah. If you're having fruits, nut butters and stuff like that, and it could be okay.
Yeah, that's the thing where a lot of people will mention about that of drinking calories, and I think that whether you agree with this, you still need to try and get as much food in as you can. And then when it gets to a point where you are struggling, that's sort of the backup plan. If your energy is really high, because a lot of people will be like, oh yeah, I drink 10 protein shakes a day. Yeah, but what are your meals? What are you actually eating? I like to use the example of, if everyone just drank everything, restaurants would go out of business. You wouldn't need to the blending business, the blender business would absolutely would skyrocket if everyone's drinking it. So that was
efficient gains. Yeah.
yeah.
Uh,
So obviously we chatted on there about the maintenance calories to be able to put muscle on, and with the need, if you need to go into the surplus amount of calories, and if they are burning quite a lot of energy, and if they are quite new to the gym and they're not necessarily eating enough, and that's why obviously they're a little bit skinnier and don't have much muscle. What are the best practices to gradually start increasing food? Because you'll find that you're always, or as a coach, you're always wanting them to start eating a little bit more and gradually build it up. But a lot of people, or I've found a lot of people, when you say, right, let's try and increase your food a little bit more, they just struggle. And obviously you mentioned there about drinking calories as well. What are the best practices that you use to gradually increase the volume of food that they're eating?
Yeah, so in terms like that equation, like weight training plus protein plus calories, I'd make sure they have enough protein evenly distributed throughout the day first, because we know that if you have ample amounts of protein with every meal, perhaps that 30 to 40 grams is going to stimulate muscle protein synthesis, the creation of building new muscle, the process of building new muscle. So if you do that, like keep that pretty much switched on by having 4 to 5 protein meals a day, perfect. Use that as the foundation, and then just start building extra calories on there through fat and carbohydrates. So I pretty much asked them, like, is there any meals in the day where you think you can eat a little bit more food? Okay, maybe a little bit more like before bed. Okay, have it there. And then it's like fill in that gap first until they physically can't have any more food. Then start drinking it. That's the way I sort of do. Just adding the layers into it. And like in terms of like numbers, macronutrients, should we say, protein again, around that sort of 2.5 gram per kilogram mark, fat about 1 gram per kilo, then the rest just goes to carbohydrates then. That's where I tend to do it. But if they're struggling to hit a higher calorie intake, then okay, I might reduce carbs and bump fat up a bit then, just to help with the calorie intake. Although I don't like to go overfeeding diets with high fat, because that's going to decrease like insulin sensitivity and stuff like that then. So I don't particularly want to go high fat overfeeding. Bit of a no-go, but
I think from what you're chatting about there, I'll work with clients and have their behaviour, which might be exactly what you've said there. Make sure that the protein is the priority, and exactly like you've said, look at the meals that they are struggling with, and it's like, oh well, do I need to base carbs around training? A little bit like what you were saying about it's a natural progression. Get the basics done first. Get that foundation, and then I remember speaking to you about this before, of building the layers. You never start right at the top. You've got to gradually build it up, and I think it just goes to show that I'm not going too far wrong. Because obviously, a lot of the nutritional questions that I have, you're my go-to source of information for that, and that's what I'll try and instill to the clients that I work with. Because you do find that, and I don't know whether you've had it as well, a lot of people panic of, oh well, I need to do this, I need to do that, but I think nutrition can be as complicated or as simple as you make it, and if you make it too complicated, that's when things start to go wrong. So it's just thinking about that process of just one step at a time.
100%. I completely agree with that. And just to perhaps add on one thing there, like sometimes like healthy isn't always optimal. That's the thing. So a lot of the lads will try and just get loads of food in, like sweet potato, broccoli, lean meats, fish, and go back to that food volume thing. Great for fat loss because it fills you up well. You can't be eating these types of food, and you can't hit the calorie intake, then okay, probably not gonna be ideal. Like I wrote a plan for a guy yesterday. He's struggling to needs to eat 10 grams per kilogram of carbs. So for him, that's about 800 grams of carbs. He's a triathlete. He's trained 3 times yesterday. It's like, Chris, how do I get 800 grams of carbs in my diet? I was like, well, okay. Do you like jelly babies? It's like, like if you had it through good sources of food, sweet potato, brown rice, all that sort of stuff, the food volume would be huge. which will fill him up too much. He won't be able to meet his calorie demands, his fueling demands. He'll under-recover, underperform, feel like shit, probably compromise his immune function. So sometimes you have to get that stuff in.
Yeah.
Plus high-fiber diets as well. They could, like, if I had it all through good quality food, you'd be on about 90 to 100 grams of fiber a day, which no, is not realistic. It's not very good because that's going to inhibit the absorption of certain sort of minerals like iron, zinc, calcium, stuff like that.
Yeah.
So, sometimes healthy isn't optimal.
Yeah.
And you do have to go. That doesn't mean like if some person listening is like on a 2,000 calorie diet, it's like, oh, I'm going to have jelly babies. Like, no, he's on about 5,500.
Yeah.
And like 5 hours of his day, he was exercising. So the time to eat is actually quite limited,
Yeah. I think obviously, the main topic of there is, which was, a question that quite a lot of the guys that I wanted to put a little bit of muscle on, get a little bit stronger, was the topic of that. But the main sort of underlying theme that has been through this is when it comes to calories, when it comes to coming on a little bit of size, depending on your goals and energy levels, it just comes down to problem solving. One piece at a time, and it is. Everything is different. How one person might respond to one thing will be a little bit different to how another person is, and there are a lot of other underlying factors that can influence that as well. So quite a lot of topics covered on that one. Quite a lot of information. I always feel as though I should be taking notes every time.
A few tangents here and there.
So for everyone listening and for the topics that we've covered, what would be your take-home points or words of wisdom from what we've chatted about today?
If you break it down into 2 areas then, in terms of the tracking stuff, really focus on ballpark figures. Don't get sort of caught up in the sort of like the tiny details. It's all like, think like that, like a jar, and you put those big rocks in first, then the smaller rocks, then the sand to fill in everything. Start with the big rocks first, and really don't sort of overcomplicate it. Like I said at the start, there's more important things in life to worry about than tracking your vegetable intake. So, from like that side of things, ballpark figures are key. In terms of the muscle growth side of things, you can't force feed muscle growth. Like, more calories will not increase rates of muscle growth, and you're going to get jacked really, really quick. You'll just get fat very quick. So although you probably do not need to be in a calorie surplus, like physiologically, my recommendations are to be in a calorie surplus just to make sure that you have enough calories, because calorie deficits are rate limiting for muscle growth.
A nice summary at the end there. I know. That sort of reiterated to me that I ain't going too far wrong from the stuff that I've learned from you. So for everyone listening who maybe if they are struggling to put on muscle, or if they are struggling with counting calories and struggling with the nutrition, and if they've got any questions for you or want to get involved in coaching with you and the workshops that you deliver, where can people find you and get in contact with you?
So website would be crystalnutrition.com, but best place to get in touch with me is going to be Instagram. Just slide into my DMs and I'll find you there.
For everyone listening, if you are struggling with nutrition, and whether you're an athlete or competing in powerlifting, or just general training in the gym, 100% give Jock Chris a message. The content and the information that he puts out there and the knowledge that he has is 100%. I know it's helped me a lot as a coach as well. Thanks a lot for taking the time to chat with me, Chris. A record-breaking fifth episode. I'm sure there'll be more in the pipeline as we head towards the 100th episode. As Strength Chat keeps steamrolling along. So thanks a lot for taking the time to chat with me. Thanks a lot to everyone listening, and I will see you all next week.